And going. All right, so again, here's our third communities of practice. We're excited to be able to present to you guys again today. So with that, we're going to just get right going. So I always start with what do our communities of practice provide? What's the purpose so that we never lose sight of that? It's really to be able to have access to each other, to your peers and the experts in the field that we're going to bring in to present to you guys, to learn the hows and the whys, knowledge sharing, resource sharing, all those good pieces together to do in a community, and one that's supportive that helps us all build confidence as well. So here's our little agenda today. We're going to start like we always do with the what's on our radar, what's due around the state on that data acquisition calendar. And then we're also going to talk about for our quick little PD or professional development, we're going to start with our federal program of the month. It's going to be the McKinney-Vento programs with Emily Summer, the coordinator. Then we're going to do some more professional development, and it's the GRA. We're going to go over some highlights in the GRA as well as the tips and tricks. This month will be from the GRA. We're going to find out how to find an old expired GAN and some other good tricks. Then we're going to have a quick discussion about ransomware in school districts. This is something that's a hot topic around the country right now. And unfortunately, it has hit some of our own districts. So if it happened to you and you want to chime in, or you heard about this on the news, I've got a couple links for people to read and a couple best practices just to start some conversations with your superintendent or other folks in your district to make sure you guys have good systems in place to protect yourselves. And then we're going to do a little GEPA overview because next month we're going to jump into EDGAR. And so GEPA is a good intro to that. So just a quick one, and then we'll talk about future agendas. So make sure, again, if anybody needs to chime in the chat, we'll be watching the chat. So if you guys have questions, anyone can unmute as well. I've made that available to you guys. Okay, so for this month, we've hit almost all the due dates. So if you look over to the left side, I have this filtered again for mostly federal programs, school finance, and special education. And so most of these dates have already passed. So if you see something on here that you're not familiar with, make sure you reach out to the coordinator if you have questions, you're not sure if your district turned it in. The only one left on here that we haven't already passed the date on, I believe, is the federal and state consolidated plan revisions, if you have any. So if you're not familiar with these, or maybe this is just a good checkbox, you feel good about, yep, we did this, yes, we did that. That's what we're here to talk about. And then too, if you're staring at this and you're like, oh my gosh, what is that? Feel free to unmute, pipe in, or you can always phone a friend and say, did you guys do that attendance report? Because I don't even know what that is. So again, we're just trying to make sure that you guys know where this is. There is a live link up there when I share this out as well. If you don't know where to find that, that is posted on the school finance page. So let's talk about January. January is a much smaller list. I didn't filter on anything. It's almost like we just needed some recovery time to let everybody get caught up. So there's a couple things though that are due that are super important that I have listed here. I didn't color code them this month. We have some student engagement and safety reports due as far as the demographics. For special education, one that's due to me is the application for tuition equivalency. So that's one that I'd like to see if you have, we probably only have 7 or 8 districts around the state that have this scenario. There's some Title 1A application for reallocated funds if there's any available. We've got that funding cap appeal application if you have that need. We have the charter school LEA designation. We got all kinds of things. I left school finance on here for this month as well because there's just that one on there, just so you guys don't lose sight of that. Although I know that you guys probably talk about that when you have your monthly meetings with school finance. And then again, at the end of the month, we have the final application and budgets that are due for the new charter schools for IDEA, for special education. And another special education report, this is more the program manager side. This is where they're doing kind of like a program monitoring of your file review. So if anybody has not started these or needs help, please see the coordinator that is listed, the SDE contact, so we can help you with that. Okay, just a quick refresher. We always want to talk about what we talked about last time in case you didn't remember something. We talked a lot about working budgets last month, and I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that, because as you might hit a little bit of a slower month in January, it's a great time to just get everything trued up, get everything in a row so that you are ready for the rest of the year. And then we talked about why do we need one? Why do we have to update our budget? So I have links in here so you guys can reference those again, but it's just really important that your accounting system is a reliable way for you to share with your board and other people that don't have access to that, so that they really truly know the budget's available to them. Okay, and then I had some other developing working budget protocols. I'm not going to read those through. These are just review from last time. So with that, we want to get into our program of the month, and that is McKinney-Vento. And so with that, we are going to welcome Emily Summer, and I should have made her a co-host, and she is in charge of all of these programs listed here. And so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to have her go ahead and share, and we'll get started with Emily. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, everyone. Okay, let me get to this here. Are you guys seeing the screen? Okay, you're seeing the first slide here? Perfect. Okay, so yes, I'm Emily Summer. I am the coordinator, the new coordinator for the Education for Homeless Children and Youth, as well as the Title I-D neglected, delinquent, and at-risk youth programs. I also manage the ARPHCY funds. So I know that's a mouthful, but we're going to just briefly go over some of these just to kind of give you all a general background. So when these
Hey, Emily.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to bug you. Can
Yeah.
you try resharing your screen? We're seeing
Oh,
the Zoom window. I apologize for that.
that's okay. That's okay. Let me stop sharing here and see if I could do that again.
Yeah, let's see. Make sure we get the right one.
How's that?
That's great. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yep, we're on.
Perfect. Okay, guys. All right. So let's get started. So if you are not familiar with McKinney-Vento, that's okay. I wasn't either. But what that is that it is an act that was reauthorized in 2015 under Title IX-A of the ESSA. And basically, this addresses the educational barriers and challenges created by homelessness by guaranteeing the students the following rights. So FAPE, free appropriate public education, immediate enrollment without traditional documents such as birth certificates, immunization records, things like that, transportation to the school of origin if that is requested, and educational supports and services needed for school success, as well as SPED services and supports if they are eligible. So why is this so important? Well, because homelessness impacts education and vice versa. And just quickly, here are just some really important stats here. So homeless students are 2 times as likely as their house peers to score poorly on standardized tests in math and reading. They are 3 times more likely to be placed in special education programs, 4 times more likely to drop out of school, 8 to 9 times more likely to repeat grades, and they are at a 346% higher risk for homelessness if they are without a high school diploma or GED. So
Hey, can we pause for just a second? We seem to have lost sound. Hold on.
Yeah, and if you don't want
Emily,
this to
can you
show-
try and unmute?
yeah, is that better?
Yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm not sure what happened. Okay, so did you guys get the data? Should I repeat this one? Did you guys hear this?
Yeah, will you go
piece?
ahead and repeat that one? That would be great. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, right now. Okay, so homelessness impacts education and vice versa. And here are some pieces of data that kind of illustrate that. So homeless students are 2 times as likely as their housed peers to score poorly on standardized tests in math and reading. They are 3 times more likely to be placed in special ed programs, 4 times more likely to drop out of school, and 8 to 9 times more likely to repeat grades. In addition, they are at a 340% higher risk for homelessness if they do not receive their high school diploma or complete a GED. So we can see here that, I mean, this is just a huge risk for our students. So these students also have some unique barriers and challenges. They may not be able to meet enrollment requirements, the traditional ones that we talked about. They may lack stability with their frequent moves and transition. They may experience hunger, fatigue, and stress, and not have adequate school supplies or a quiet or safe place to study, not have access to reliable transportation, and sometimes not even a parent or a guardian. So when we think about McKinney-Vento and supporting our homeless students, a lot of times we think immediately about those physical needs, and we think, oh, free lunch, but it's more than that. It includes transportation, it includes sports, tutoring, band instrument rentals, things like that. And here we don't have to go through all of this, but with the McKinney-Vento subgrant, these are some of the allowable use of funds that you may see. So there's tutoring, there's PD, school supplies, early childhood education programs, before and after school mentoring or summer programming, specialized instructional supports, referrals, adaptation of space or purchase of supplies for non-school facilitation, activities to health or to address the needs of homeless children from domestic abuse, drug abuse, violence, and extraordinary or emergency assistance to homeless education for assistance to homeless children to fully participate in school. Okay, so our McKinney sub-grant here, it is a 3-year grant. We are coming up on their last year here. It's a competitive application. These open up March 1st. There are 2 main focus areas of this grant, mainly program development and improvement and student success and well-being. It's an online tool app that's found on our SDE Title IX website. Program monitoring, we probably monitor about 3 a year in each of the during the grant cycle. So here is just a brief overview of all the funding that can support students that are eligible for McKinney-Vento here. So we have the basic funding, which some of it comes from Title 1A homeless set-asides. There can be other state or federal funding. And there's local supports, so nonprofits, faith-based groups, other grants, and community organizations. And then there is the enhancement sub-grant, which we call the McKinney sub-grant, which is that competitive grant that I mentioned. So in this current grant cycle, we had 29 LEAs that received an award total of $801,699. So we are super excited about that, and we hope and encourage more LEAs to continue to apply for next year. Here is a screenshot of our Title IX-A website landing page here. So lots of really good resources. So you have a minute, you can feel free to navigate here and to look and see what we have here. So Title I-D, neglected, delinquent, and at-risk youth programs. So what is that? So the purpose of this is to improve educational services for students in neglected or delinquent facilities so that they have the opportunity to meet challenging state academic content and achievement standards. It's also to provide services for a successful transition from institutionalization to school or employment, and it's preventative. For at-risk youth from dropping out of school and to provide students returning from the facilities with a support system to ensure their continued education. So we're going to talk about some of these definitions. So what is, how is delinquent defined? So there are students that are up to age 21 who do not have a diploma or a GED. They can be pre-adjudicated, adjudicated to live in a delinquent facility, either short or long term, or they could be on probation. So they are court ordered to be in a transitional day program. And in Idaho, more and more kids are actually being redirected to these diversion programs versus incarceration. So neglected, they are defined as children living in neglected facilities due to neglect, abandonment, or death of parents or guardians. And neglect here is defined as failure to meet children's basic needs that results in a void that places children in harm's way. And these needs or voids may be there whether to the failure of a parent, community, or society. And at risk. So at risk is defined as any secondary student grade 7 through 12 who meets any of the 3 following criteria. So either has repeated at least 1 grade, has absenteeism more than 10%, has an overall grade point average less than 1.5, has failed 1 or more academic subjects, is 2 or more semester credits behind, has substance abuse behavior, is pregnant or a parent, is an emancipated youth, previous dropout, has serious personal, emotional, or medical problems, court or agency referral, or demonstrates behavior that is detrimental to their academic progress. So here is just an overview of the subgrant and the service structure. So the Title I-D subgrant is divided into 2 subparts. So subpart 1, they are going to be our state correctional agencies. So we have the Department of Corrections and the Department of Juvenile Corrections. Subpart 2 of the grant is for the regional juvenile detention centers. So that is a formula grant. We have a formula grant and a 3-year competitive grant. And here is our screenshot of our resources on the Title I-D neglected delinquent. We have the application tool that is online, as well as some program and overview PowerPoints there. Okay. And lastly, our American Rescue Plan Homeless Children and Youth, also known as ARP-HCY. So Congress approved $800 million to support the specific needs of students who are experiencing homelessness nationwide. Idaho received there's 2 parts of this grant. There's the Homeless 1 and Homeless 2 portion of the grant. The first one received over 100,000. The second part received just over 2 million. So the purpose of these funds is to address the urgent needs of children and youth experiencing homelessness. And that includes academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs. And these funds can also be used to increase capacity by hiring staff, dedicating resources, planning partnerships with community-based organizations, and other strategies. And we'll see here that the allowable use of funds is much more broad than other funds that we've had in the past to support these students. So here I've highlighted just in bold, just a couple of the main differences. Purchase of cell phones, that is an allowable expense with these ARP HCY funds. Store cards, prepaid debit cards, those are actually allowed here too. And then in addition to these, it's also any allowable use of funds under the McKinney-Vento subgrant as well. So the spending timeline of these funds, they need to be obligated by September 30th of 2024, and the drawdown deadline is January 31st of 2025. And there we have it. I know we've gone through a lot of information, but please, if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach me. My contact information is here, and I'm always happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. It was really exciting learning about the McKinney-Vento program. And something I always say is that when you're in the business office, for instance, you may not feel like you're saving the world, and maybe you don't understand exactly what's going on. So we're going to really try and highlight with our communities of practice each month to make sure that we have the ability to share with you guys just so that we all learn a little bit more. Okay, so let me see. You guys let me know if you can see my new screen that says GRA Basics. Can you guys see that yet? Yep. Okay. Excellent. Just want to make sure. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties today. Speaking of drawdowns, as Emily was mentioning, we're going to go over some GRA basics today. Just some high level. Some of this is a review for you guys, but we're having to turn back a lot of claims lately for various reasons. So we're just going to do a run through, and hopefully this is helpful and you guys can pick up something. And we're going to start by introducing Katarina Dyer. She is the fiscal program specialist here in IDEA. And with that, let's get going.
Can you see me?
Second. Hold on just a second. I want to get rid of the echo. Okay. There we go. Can you still see it?
Yes, but you need to go to the slide where I do presentation. I don't see my screen. Do you?
Now do you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. Today we're going to do a quick review on grant reimbursement application. Next slide, please. Most of you are familiar with the grants management application. And on the next slide, we have a nice resource. If you go on a tab under documentation, there is a grant reimbursement application manual, especially if you are new and you're trying to get familiar with all that. I suggest to start with that. It really helped me when I started. They just give you the general overview of grant reimbursement processes. Next slide, please. We have a certain time when approved payments are being released by accounting system. So all approved payments are being paid out on 11th and 25th of each month. So please keep in mind when you're submitting your reimbursements, if it's after 5 p.m. on the 10th and 24th, it might not make it on, it will make it on the next cycle. So try to submit your request before 5 p.m. Also, last month we have pretty big amount of reimbursements coming in. I believe I processed over 136 reimbursements. So just keep in mind that you might want to give yourself a few days. Don't submit it on the very last day, just because when we review, sometimes there are additional questions. Perhaps something was not attached or dates needs to be corrected. Just to hit a heads up, give yourself some time to submit it and being reviewed. Next slide, please. General guidance when you submitting reimbursement requests, all expenditures must be allowable costs. And every grant, as Emily just mentioned, there are different allowable guidance. So if you're not sure if your items are allowable or not, you feel free to contact SDAD program coordinator with questions. We are providing you some email addresses how to contact our departments. Next, grant reimbursement requests for ESEA grants, which is all your title programs, are being usually compared with approved application in CFSGA portal. And respectively, as you can see, there are other different programs that are mentioned here where budgets and applications are provided. In regards to IDA grants, we are reviewing your grants, your requests with approved or current budgets that you submitted to us. Right here, you see snippets of our homepage for the application and a little snippet of the budget. Reimbursement. So when we are submitting reimbursements, the key word, remember here, it's a reimbursement. So you have to submit your expenditures that's already been paid. So you cannot ask for something that it hasn't been not complete. For example, if you have contractor, you can submit the request through October and they finished with their work, you have invoice, so go ahead and provide that in your reimbursements. The same with the payroll. You cannot ask for something that hasn't been paid out, or like if it's a payroll, it hasn't been submitted yet. When you create your reimbursement, you have a start date and end date. So your expenditure should be listed sort of from the most recent one to the most current one in that order accordingly. Next page, please. Here we decided to provide you quick examples of the reimbursement. On the left-hand side, you see your screen from grants management. So this is how you complete your request. On the right-hand side, you have a snippet from one of our LAAs on the provided expenditure report. So a few things I want to kind of touch base here. The expenditure reports, they should match your expenditure reports dates on the report. So it's matching exact period you're submitting. The expense categories as well. Now this beginning July, we requesting for you to upload expenditure reports for us. It doesn't have to be anything very lengthy and detailed. Simple summary expenditure report by object code works well for us. If we see some expenditures or some items, perhaps food items that may be questionable, we might request additional information from you. But usually simple summary report works really great. Be sure that amount requested and your total amount on the report you're providing us are matching. If it happens, if it doesn't match and you have some internal something accounting going on, please highlight or leave any kind of notes on the amount why is a difference, why there are discrepancy in that. Lastly, if you feel like you're submitting some food items or something that might be questionable, feel free to attach additional information. That way it saves us the time to email you and request for additional information. So anything you can give us, say this is how we went, our staff went on a training, food was not provided, so here's our agendas, here's our sign-in sheets, etc., etc., etc. And lastly, when you do your reports, reimbursement requests, please take a look at your current budgets in application. Because when you creating your applications at the beginning of the year, right now we just finally finalize them, your needs might have changed by now. So if you at the beginning just requested for salaries and benefits, and all of a sudden you're like, I really need to use supplies for preschoolers, and you don't have that line item in your budget application, we would have to revise your budget. And don't worry about it. It's really not a hard thing to do. Just email me or Lisa and just say we would like to request our budget to be updated in the application. It's really not a big deal, and our turnaround time is really, really quick. So that way you have your request is matching your budget, and you have provided expenditure reports as well for us as well. If you have any questions, concern, feel free to email me. I respond very, very quickly to any of your needs in regards to drawdowns. And this is the example of our budget, approved budget. And next I'll give it to Lisa. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Katerina. And just a quick note too, as she was talking about, we gave a couple of screenshots of some of the special ed budgets in our application, but it's similar in the CFSGA and the other applications. But if you think about it, when you guys do those applications and requests for funds, providing a budget of what you think you're going to spend the funding on. And I'm just going to wait for that to go by. Anyway, and so if it changes and your plans change, you really need to request permission to spend differently. So that's why we have to do those budget revisions. And that's just a whole federal funding thing. Okay, so next we're going to talk about period of performance on federal funds. And this is really something that you should be familiar with if you're the fiscal person. When you go in to do a drawdown for a reimbursement out of this GRA system, you'll see your period of performance. That's the active dates of the grant for the award that you're taking funds from. And then there's two different things. You've got a period of performance, you've got an expenditure period, but you may also have an obligation period. And so I've got some CFR references here so that you know the difference if you want to look those up. But basically the period of performance is dictated by statute, and that's indicated in your grant award notification, or the GAN. But then you're going to be requesting for a specific period of time, like for your payroll or when your expenses came through. Whoops, make sure I got my clicker. Okay. Next, we've got the obligation period. So I mentioned there's a little bit of a difference there. I wanted to make sure that you guys had references here and that you understood some of the differences in what the obligation might mean. So sometimes you might order something and you've made the obligation, you may have even paid for it, but you haven't received it. Or sometimes you are on hold, but you have a binding commitment or some way to acquire something. So look at this little chart we have here so that you guys can reference, is it based on when the services are performed? Because if that is something provided by an LEA, then that's when the actual obligation was made. But if you look about personal services by a contractor that's not an employee, it's basically when the binding written commitment has been put together. So we've had this a lot during ESSER and ARPA dates where you may have ordered something, you got it, but you had to wait for the contractor to do their work because they were backed up. So likely it would have fit into the obligation period, which is kind of an extension of the period from the actual grant award itself on the period of performance. So if you ever have questions about that, feel free to reach out to your coordinator for the various grant that you have in question. All right, so liquidation, I mentioned that past the period of performance. So liquidation is an extra period of 90 days after that. So many of our awards end on September 30th, and that's really where we say, hey, most of the work should have been performed and expenditures should have been in, but we realize that you might have paid that P card or an invoice a little bit after that, but it really was for the period of performance. So you guys have up to 90 days that allows you guys to close out those awards. Now, some of us over here, if we haven't seen any activity or if we've already reached out and said, are you going to use these funds? We may close your grant a little earlier than that so that we have the availability to either turn it around to somebody else, depending on the grant funds and so on. But if you ever have any question and you have a grant disappear that you didn't think should, please give your coordinator a call. Okay, documentation requirements. We did talk about that with Katarina a little bit. Make sure that you submit the correct documentation for the program and what their requirements were. Now, some of our programs require a lot more detail than others, but if it's not clear and it doesn't match your request, it's harder for us over here to approve that. So again, if you have like a 25-page document, because that's all you can get out of your accounting software, we get it. Just please highlight the pieces that are pertinent so that we know what you're asking for. And sometimes a summary is okay. Sometimes you can show us that, but depending on the type of funding source that you're asking for, you may still have to attach something else in the GRA, like with the type of position or the person you're requesting it for. Okay. Now we have kind of just an overview of how come things get sent back to us. Well, for instance, Katarina gave the example that special education is now requiring that we have a report attached. And if you think about it in accounting, if you're going to ask for funds, you ran some sort of report in the first place to figure out what you needed to be reimbursed for. So you have the documentation, otherwise you wouldn't be able to ask for it. There's a lot of reasons that we ask for it. For one, it's going to help us in the auditing periods because we'll already have that documentation for what you asked for. And it's something that helps us know that you're requesting the right things to be reimbursed for according to the budget that you asked to spend against. But some of the reasons that we have these kicked back would be that perhaps you were asking for purchase services and your budget was only salary and benefits. Quick fix, like Katarina mentioned, we can update those budgets. Same with the federal programs group. Or maybe what you requested exceeded what you had available. Or perhaps those things didn't line up. We've had a little bit about that the GRA said you had more money than the application did. So give us a call or an email if something doesn't match. And then again, incorrect date ranges or the supporting documentation is not clear, just doesn't match up. We realize you guys are flying by the seat of your pants sometimes, and sometimes you guys attach the wrong one to the wrong drawdown. And we over here in IDEA and our federal program staff, if you have an error, just email one of us and we can always kick that back to you if you've noticed something that needed to change. Okay, so return requests continued. You need to have notes in here. You can't have a blank request, whether it's CFSGA or other programs. You need to tell us what it is you're looking for. So make sure you recognize that. That's the easiest way to not get something kicked back. Reimbursement explanations. So you've got to have some sort of an explanation. And this is a screenshot to the right of what it is that you are saying you are requesting. You'll notice at the bottom too, there is something that says, yeah, I've read this. It's not a false statement. This is truly what I'm looking to draw down for. So again, we ask you, it seems like, to sign your life away, but really we just need to make sure that we are utilizing these federal funds according to the grant program. So if again, the description isn't clear, we might have to return it. So try your best and just know that we're not trying to be mean. We have to be good stewards of these funds. And it's our job to make sure that everything lines up. Sometimes you guys have been appreciative and said, oops, I didn't mean to do that. And other times I know it's frustrating. You're like, gosh, I have to attach so many things. So if there's any suggestions that you guys might have on that, boy, it sure would be great if we could do it this way. Give us those ideas because, we're just trying to make sure that we help everybody stay compliant. All right. We also have some differences with ESSER, as you guys know. You have to have that explanation on all your requests, and they have to be to prepare for, or to respond to COVID-19. There's a reference for the 20 ESSER allowable use of funds. If you don't know what that is, let us know. You have to do that when you're requesting capital objects. You have to have the CEF request has to be attached. And ESSER folks, if you want to chime in on anything, you should be able to unmute. But I was just going to say, please state if this is for something that's for tangible property. So again, your capital objects that are over the $5,000 threshold. All right, time for nifty tricks. So I'm not going to spend too much time on these, but we always try and give you some sort of tips and tricks. So we're inside the GRA, and I realize these aren't the best screenshots, but what I wanted you guys to understand, a lot of folks don't know you can do this, is that over in the top right corner, you should see a status when you're in there, and it looks like a little filter. You can filter on all these little pieces. And the results are, you can say active or inactive. So you can see all, just your active is what would default, but you can actually clear it and you could see them all together if you wanted. So that's something nice. Something that's super helpful. We have found some of the things that we ask you for when we're doing fiscal monitoring, for instance, or program monitoring, is we want to check your record retention. And we say, hey, do you have abilities to show us a grant notification from 5 years ago? And if you don't have one, here's a nifty trick to go find it. So when you're in the GRA, I've got a screenshot here, you go and you open up your arrow on the left side, you would come over to your grant period, you would pop it open, and over to the far right, you would have to filter on inactive or active. So if it was an old one from 5 years ago, you're going to have to change that to inactive. Super helpful, because sometimes you're not the person that gets the notification, because we only have that go to certain folks. And if you don't have a copy, that's where you can get it. More nifty tricks. Okay. Clicking the expansion arrow on the left again will open that up and you can see where your requests were if you have a question on that. And then the grant periods is that where we were before. It's going to always default to active periods, but it's just helpful for you guys if you need to see what the dates were or how much was left based on what you guys have drawn down. So that's very, very helpful. Okay, reimbursement reports. Some of you guys don't realize that you have these reports available to you. So here's a screenshot of Boise. So once you're in your own district, you can click over to the third tab over and click on reports. You can see your paid activity. These are helpful during audit if they ask to see one of your specific funds, like if you're in a single audit and you want to just go see everything. If you have questions on that and you need help navigating that, reach out to your coordinator. We want you guys to feel confident in the GRA because it's very helpful just to make sure that everything's aligned with your ledger. Okay, we have other GRA facts, and these are all links about SAM, about transitioning to the UEIs, DUNS numbers, all those pieces in here, frequently asked questions. So good resources. And then again, we have the allowable use of funds manual for our federal fund program and the CFSGA guidance instructions. And then I've got links to the IDEA Part B resources and special education allowable cost training. So that's helpful. Sometimes you're like, oh, is this allowable? We actually have cheat sheets for that. So we want you to know where these things are. All right, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing and get ready to go back to our other presentation, and we'll jump back in for this one. Hold on just a minute, and we're going to get ready to talk about a discussion, and I'm hoping that folks will chime in. If not, I'll talk a little bit about this, but I want to make sure that we take a few minutes. Let me share that screen again to talk about cybersecurity and ransomware. So this is something that's been a hot topic around the country, and I really just wanted to spend a few minutes because as we are doing our applications for funding and as you guys are struggling to get through audit, a couple of the districts in our state got hit really hard with ransomware, and they lost almost their whole fiscal year from the prior year, and it is a pain to try and restore that. Many folks couldn't. So just want to make sure that you guys are aware of this. I've got a link here that you guys can click and read a story. Just to give you an idea, what's happening is that schools are getting hit and their systems are not maybe as well defended as they could be. K through 12 schools were seen as particularly lucrative targets because they have data such as payroll, they've got student data, they've got all kinds of stuff that you guys have to keep safe. So we would just want to draw attention to this so that you guys don't lose sight of this, and maybe bring this up with your own board or your own administrative groups there at your districts, your leadership groups. But I wanted to talk quickly about what happened to LA Unified, they were one of the districts that are around this country that got hit really hard. And then when they refused to pay, unfortunately, what happened is a ton of their data, including students, employees, contractors, personal identifying information, their social security numbers, everything, they got all this got posted on the dark web. So it is a real threat, on top of maybe them wiping out your accounting system or school information systems. They could post this information, which really leaves you at a huge vulnerability and liability as a district. So there's been a big ask for the Department of Education to try and do more to help to secure student data and to help districts around the country know what to do. So hopefully that will be more to come in the next few years. But I've had people say, well, what should we do? Should we pay? What do we do? So I've got some links to some articles here. I can't tell you what to do, but I would say there are some best practices. So I wanted to give you guys some of those so that you can protect your guys yourselves as much as possible. So here's some of the protections that I have found around stuff. And I have a picture of a football team. So this could be a game plan for you guys. I'm not going to read through these. I just want these to be talking points for you guys. Something to help you understand that, oh my goodness, we should try and get ready for this. And then what about the cloud? What if we have everything in the cloud? The cloud's great, but again, you should try and make sure that you have several ways to prevent a hit. And that's what happened. And here's a success story. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here. So there's a success story. They didn't have to even consider paying because they were like, so what, we'll just restore it. And that's really what we want you to feel like you'll have available to you. So I just wanted to pause before I go any further and see if anybody in the chat or otherwise had anything that they wanted to bring up. And you guys can feel free to unmute, but I didn't want to point out any of our districts that have this happen to them, but I will tell you there are at least 2 that lost almost their entire accounting system. It's been a nightmare for them. We can't approve their federal grants till they make it through their audits. It's really just been a mess. Does anybody have anything to say? I'm going to keep going since we're sort of short on time, but I just want you guys to have that to think about. Okay, so we're going to jump into GEPA next. So I am going to pause here and get ready to share yet another presentation for you guys, and we'll just jump through that one quickly. So GEPA is a good introduction, I feel, to get started with. Can you guys see that? Before we get into next month. And next month, we're going to jump into EDGAR. But GEPA is a General Education, specifically Education Provision Act. And so this was a presentation created by Stacy. She's one of our coordinators in federal programs. And I have here that I'll present with Michelle, but mostly it'll probably be me since we're going to be diving quickly through this. So here is what we're going to dive through. So I apologize if I'm talking fast, but really, what I want you guys to understand is, again, we talk a lot about these codes, these federal regulations that we have, and this one is specific to education. It's GEPA. It's an enforcement regulation that contains statutory provisions that are applicable to most federal education programs that are administered by the Department of Ed, the federal one, and their administrative powers and responsibilities. There are 4 parts. And they're outlined here for you, including enforcement, but we're going to get into those here in the next couple slides. I don't want to read them all to you. So what is GEPA? Well, this is something that requires grantees to describe the steps that they will take to ensure equitable access to and participation in these federally assisted programs that are for students, teachers, and other beneficiaries with special needs. It outlines several statutory provisions that are applicable to title programs as well. So I've got a little picture here about equity and equality and justice. And so this is one of the steps that the feds want us to take. So Section 427 of GEPA affects applicants for federal grant awards, and all applications annually must provide and include your information in your CFSGA application that will address this. And we also have things inside the IDEA Part B application that actually are just listed in code, but they're listing the GEPA code. So when you do your assurances, when you do our application as well, you're also saying, yep, I have this in place, but CFSGA actually has a place for you to upload it. So local LEAs and other eligible applicants that apply to the state for this federal funding have to provide this GEPA statement, and it is located inside that CFSGA application. So the other main point that I've seen in many presentations around the country is that the description doesn't have to be super lengthy to satisfy the requirements. And we'll give you some examples here coming up. So section 427, you need to have that description of the steps you will take, and you need to make sure that it's based on local circumstances in your area. So try and address the barriers that would or could impede participation or equitable access. And what are the barriers? Well, they're not the same for everybody in every area, but they could be, you know, is there some sort of barrier that limits access or restraints or obstructs the progress or the access in general? And it could be intentional or unintentional. So you guys have to address that and find a way that you can make a statement that says, yep, this is how I'm going to do this. This is how I'll address it. And I'm not going to read all of these, but I do want to just make sure that you guys understand that there's also civil rights statutes that are also, you know, going to prohibit the use of discriminatory practices. Again, they might be unintentional. So make sure that you guys read through these since we are short on time. There's a couple of examples of some barriers, could be gender, race, disability, age, but you can't just make a broad statement that says no student will face a barrier of any kind. You have to actually give a few details of how. List something that's reflective of the unique circumstances of your LEA. Here's some examples. I'm not going to read through them, but I just want to make sure that you have a couple examples. And again, this is a great training that was put together by our folks in federal programs. So make sure you print these out when we get them posted. And there's even some examples continued that are fairly decent that you could then maybe expand upon or tweak just to make sure that they align better with what's happening in your district. Okay, a couple quick pictures I wanted to make sure that we showed is that this is a picture inside CFSGA where you guys will go in and attach that file so that we make sure that they see that. So reach out to the federal program staff if you have a question when you're inside of that. Okay, and then again, this is an annual process, so make sure that you review what you had last year, see if you need to make changes or updates, if there's something else you want to address, and you will upload a revised, updated copy if necessary. And then here's some great links that they have. And this was, again, a presentation that was put together from something that the Colorado Department of Education had originally put together. It's just such a great resource. We want to make sure you guys know where to find these things. So there are some federal links, and then there are some state links for you guys. And with that, that's the end of the piece about GEPA. I only have a couple minutes left, and I'm going to jump back to my other presentation. We're going to block these out so that you guys have them as separate files, because we want to make sure that if you're just looking for that part about the ransomware, you just wanted to see the GEPA, we just want to make sure you have the ability to jump into that one. So let me reshare my screen. So it's all about having good resources. Okay. And I think that was GEPA. So we will jump to the next slide. Okay. Future agendas and professional development opportunities. So, oops, sorry, double comma. We took out the federal food from this one and we moved it down to January. So we have a beautiful presentation for you, but we want to make sure everybody's there live for that one. And then we're going to really jump into EDGAR 101, just how to navigate it. There's no way we're going to cover it all. We're actually going to do a separate training on that. It won't be communities of practice, but it will be a nice intro on the communities of practice to understand what we're going to look through in those other trainings that will be coming. In February, we're still looking forward to talking about the federal fiscal cliff coming our way. And we're going to talk about the differences in federal programs maintenance of effort versus SPED. We're going to talk about budgeting in March. We're going to talk about risk management and the compliance supplement in April. Oh boy. And then prepping for year end, indirect cost calculations. It really is an art. I already have a couple of you guys lined up to do some of these presentations, but if there's anything that looks exciting to you, maybe making sense of iFarms or IC is something that you would love to help present, that's something that made sense to you. But that's really what we're looking for our next few months. This is again subject to change, but we really just want to make sure you guys have some good presentations and reference guides. And then to this month, our program of the month was McKinney-Vento. We're going to go into title programs in January. We'll do a special ed overview in February, all things ESSER. We'll do some child nutrition, school improvement, migrant ed, and then we've got more lined up for the summer past that. And it's just great. I think like when Emily is presenting today, it's just a good reminder of what is this program. When you're the fiscal person, it is so hard to know what's going on. So we want to make sure you guys get some nice overviews of those programs. We're just a call away. I've got Katarina and myself here. And then I've got a huge list of folks for you guys from the federal program staff. Just to make sure you guys have their information. And that's all I have for you guys. I know that was a lot. I just want to thank you guys for your time. I want to make sure if anybody has any questions that you guys can unmute or put your questions in the chat. Did anybody have any questions? I promise next month we're going to have some of you guys have to pipe in. I've got a couple of you guys lined up, but if we don't have any questions, we'll sit on here for a few minutes. If we don't, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday from everybody here at the State Department. It is a pleasure always to provide resources and trainings for you guys. I can't wait to see many of you in the spring at some of the other upcoming training sessions and always on our communities of practice. And we'll make sure to get these posted here within a week, I hope. Sooner, I'm getting faster each time, and we'll break out these presentations for you guys and send out a link on where to find them. But with that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks again, everybody, for attending, and we'll see you guys in January for Communities of Practice number 4. Bye-bye, everyone.